Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
And what are we talking about today, Tara?
We are going to be discussing the first half of the second book in the Throne of Glass series. And holy hell, guys, you're in for a ride.
So Throne of Glass ended with Celaena winning spot of the champion of Otterlin, and now she's employed by the king of Otterlin officially. And this book, Crown of Midnight, begins with her on her fourth job, I believe. 2 months have passed since she won. Caltaine is still rotting away in the dungeons, and Celaena is finishing up her fourth job, and we find out some really good things, like we suspected. You want to go into what that is?
So I don't know exactly what you're insinuating on that we expected, or suspected. As she's being described as this is her fourth job for the king, and we all know Celaena, and she is not happy to be working for the king. As I'm reading this, I'm like, hey, why don't you just say you're killing these people and not? Like, why do you have to actually kill them? And we find out that in fact is what Celaena is doing. So she is still our good little assassin that we come to love, but nobody else knows this, because if she tells anybody, it's putting them at risk, as well as Chaol and Nehemia and Nehemia's family, who the king has already threatened their life if she doesn't do what he says.
Yeah, Celaena is going through many hoops to make sure that the story is believable. She's bringing back like heads, hands, making people hand over like family sigils as proof of their identity and stuff, and giving them a choice, like either you stay and die or you get the hell out of here and I'll let you live. And she'll track down just fresh corpses and just bring back those pieces, which is so gross. But she comes back from her fourth job. She's getting paid, we find out, to do this work. So it's not like she's, not without any financial means. I mean, she's still a slave, but she's getting paid for the work now. So she's doing what any gal would do. She's like shopping for books and clothes and decorating her space and stuff, which is so fun to read those scenes. But upon coming back from this fourth job, the king of Otterlin summons her to the throne room to give her job number 5, which is to assassinate a man named Archer Finn. And she has a great pause because she recognizes that name from her past working under Arobyn's employ, because she did training with Archer as kind of like a femme Nikita, like a honeypot type of training as an assassin. So that is a new character that's been introduced in this. And then I feel like the first half of this book was filled with a lot of like dress up celebration events, like masquerades, balls. We find out Prince Dorian's hellion little brother, Holland, has been pulled out of school because of all of this stuff going on around the kingdom. The king of Adarlan with sending Celaena out on these assassinations for people that he deems enemy of his empire. There's just a lot of uprising springing up everywhere, and everyone is worried about the security of Prince Holland. So he's pulled back, and they throw, of course, a grand celebration for this little brat child who is rude and mean to animals, people alike, and Prince Dorian is not having a fun time having his brother back and just wants to strangle him.
It was hilarious, the scene where he's having to dance with all of these girls and he's like, I don't wanna, but I have to, I don't wanna. Yeah. It was funny.
In addition to Dorian's little brother, Holland, being back, the cousin, I believe, Rolland, he is called to court, and Celaena, upon meeting him, immediately hates the guy, doesn't trust him for good reason, as we will see. But he is just your stereotypical, I'm gonna flirt and sleep with and push boundaries of whoever I want. And he is also wearing that black ring that the King of Otterlin wears, that Duke Harrington wears, that Cain wore until Chaol killed him in the last book. And so there's something going on. They're in cahoots. Rolland is now a member of the King's Council and gets to weigh in on big things happening politically and making votes on things like expanding the labor camps and all of this stuff, because they're mining for iron. And we find out that iron is a material that nullifies magic. So that's mentioned like very briefly in the book.
So one of my favorite quotes comes out of her meeting Roland, because Roland starts flirting with her, and obviously Dorian and Chaol are like, no, dude, back off. Like, we've already got a love triangle going on. We don't need a love square. They're both beside themselves, and she says something that is absolutely hysterical, that is along the lines of, my idea of working with you includes a dagger, a shovel, and an unmarked grave to him. And I was like, you go, girl. You go. Because that was just a perfect, like, little snarky quip at him. Let everybody know where she stood.
The girl has some good zingers. I just love that she speaks her mind, and if she doesn't like you, she lets you know it. She's not just gonna talk behind your back, she's just gonna like say it to your face, and she always does it in the most entertaining way possible. I just, oh my god, yes. She does some recon work on Archer before she makes her assassination attempt on him. And so she ends up running into him out and about when she's with Chaol. And Chaol is immediately just like beside himself with insecurity and jealousy because Archer happens to be this super handsome hunk of a man. He just has a very natural flirtatious way about him, and he just openly eyes Celaena, and she doesn't like put up a wall or anything. She just kind of plays back in that way, and it makes Chaol so insecure.
And it was funny because you see their past history where she learned to flirt with him. And so she's using some of that he taught her on him. And knowing that back history and knowing that is really funny. But if Kale knew that, Archer was her first like crush, like, and I think it would have been even more hilarious if Kale knew that part.
So Celaena agrees to meet Archer to dinner because he's like, hey, before you get rid of me, like she's like pressuring him to get names out of him of everyone who is involved with being against the king. And so they're like, okay, we can talk about it over dinner and all of that stuff. Before that, though, is the big ceremony, little celebration for Holland's return. And they invite basically, which is the equivalent of like a pop star named Rita to come perform. And she decides to dedicate her performance to just the Empire, basically. And it ends up being a song that highly offends the king and makes him angry. It is a song that is very emotional and moves Celaena to tears, and I'm sure other people in the room to tears. Celaena has actually seen Rita perform in the past, years ago, at the Royal Theater. So she's like acquainted with her. She's a very well known singer. And what she's singing about is like a forbidden love and like that magical thing of before, you know, there was the Empire and stuff, which is just a huge no-no to this particular king. And so she finishes up her performance, and there is a cutscene that is so heartbreaking that takes place in the dungeons. The king is there, Duke Parrington is there, Roland, if there was any kind of doubt on the kind of person he was, he is in presence there, and Rita is basically just being told why they're executing her secretly. But she dies basically rattling off the names of all of her loved ones, friends, people that she knew that were killed in the King of Adarlan's empire. So it's a really heartbreaking thing. On a little side quest with Archer, Celaena decides to force her way into this masquerade that's held at an estate, and she's hoping to get more information about these names that he is giving her. And so she goes to this estate where there's a masquerade ball, and I think she picks the lock and gets into this room, and she's like scrambling around trying to find evidence on this guy, and he walks in on her. And do you want to go into all that stuff that happened?
Yeah, so he walks in on her and she makes up an excuse as to she was let in there because her boyfriend just broke up with her and the maid let her in, or housekeeper or whatever. And she thought that he was believing her because he's like, okay, well, just like leave. This is off limits kind of thing. But then he pulls out a dagger on her and he's like, my housekeeper, nobody has the key to this room. My housekeeper doesn't even have a key to this room. And so he pulls dagger on her, and she's the assassin queen, or queen of the underworld, so he doesn't get too much of a drop on her, but he does nick her a little bit. And in nicking her, he had poisoned his blade, so the poison is now seeping into her system, so she knows she has to be very quick about what she's going to do, and she ends up killing him with his own dagger and escapes with a little nugget of information riddle that tells her that she can see everything clearly through the eye, or only with the eye can you see things clearly. And so she's going home trying to figure out what the hell this riddle means, and everybody else is discovering him dead by his own dagger.
It's very much a high adrenaline scene. Like, she is freaking out because she doesn't want to get found here. The king doesn't even know she's here because she's kind of working under the table with Archer to get more information. And so she is basically becoming less conscious and she's slowing down. And so she is like racing and scrabbling to get to the castle. And she gets there in time and shows up at whose door?
Chaos, because that's her safe place.
Chaol, yes. It's interesting to see how their relationship kind of progressed in this book. In the last book, she broke things off with Dorian because, oh, I'm the assassin now of the kingdom and you're the prince. Like, it wouldn't work for the two of them. But now she's like dating Captain Westfall, which is creating all kinds of jealousy for Dorian. He's like very much become kind of a loner in the first half of the book. Like, he just doesn't want to be around people. He doesn't want to be around his family. He doesn't want to be around Roland, even though Roland is like spying on him and just like kissing his ass constantly, which is like, dude, everyone can see through your shit. But Dorian's like trying to research. He's like feeling very different. He has a couple exchanges with like Nehemia, and she's very cryptic about it. She just doesn't come out and say what's going on with him, but he's definitely undergoing some kind of change or transformation or something. And there's a lot of scenes where he describes being very, very cold and frigid, and he starts having like powers manifest. So now he's just like, shit, I need to be secretive about this because he knows that his own father would kill him if he found out about it. So he's trying to do research on their heritage and all of this stuff. And I feel so bad for him. He has like some scenes with Celaena that he's still trying to be in her life. That's the only person he really cares about and thinks about. He's still trying to be in her life in some capacity, which is so sad. And he just wants to be her friend. And there was one, we kind of talked about this already. You know what that scene is? And talk about it.
Is it the one where he asked her if he should fight for her, if that's what she wants, if she wants him to like pose a battle with KL? And it's so sweet because she's like, no, I really don't. Like, just let it go. But he's like, is that what you want? Like, I will fight for you.
She's kind of confusing, right? Because you get glimpses into how she's feeling. And she's definitely like, oh, if I see him talking to anyone, I just want to like attack whatever girl he's with. And a part of her wants to be with him and misses him and stuff, but she just won't let that happen. And she basically comes to terms and is like, well, it's unfair of me to want him and not want him to be with other people. And he deserves to be happy too, kind of thing. And then he has a lot of soul searching as well. And he finally is just like, I'll let her go, even though it hurts for him to see Chaol and Celaena just kind of romping around everywhere in love. Like, they're very much acting in love. And so I want to talk about Chaol's birthday. So his birthday, he turns like 23 or something. And so Dorian is with them and he gifts Chaol an Asturian male, like a stallion. And Celaena is very much familiar with this breed of a horse because she spent some time in the Red Desert and stole some guy's Asturian mare. And so she is like kind of reminiscing about that. And then she decides to do something special for Chaol too for his birthday. And that was probably one of my favorite parts too of this story. She plans like a little birthday dinner celebration. It's very romantic. It's like a rooftop, candles, whatever, 4 or 5 course meal type of thing. And you want to talk a little bit more about what happens with this little birthday for Chaol?
Kel has never felt special as a person. His family has always, well, they disowned him. That tells you what his family is like. And so she had the dinner that was catered to what he likes and his favorite meal. And he notices that it is his favorite meals. And he's like, how long have you been watching me? And she's like, well, you answer first, which was funny. But she's like, yeah, I noticed that anytime we have the stew, I barely get any because you're on it. And so she's like, I noticed things, which was cute.
I love that. Yeah. I think this is the night she also gives up her virginity. Like, she trusts Chaol and he's so cute about it. Like, he makes sure he has her consent. He's like, are you sure? And she's just like, duh. Like, they're pretty much ripping each other's clothes off, and that is that. And now it's awkward because they're pretty much an item, and Dorian is still just sulking around as the reject, pining over her. And my heart, I'm like, I'm so sad for Dorian.
Well, and he does also, like, he notices the change. He notices things are happening, right? And he goes up to Kale and he tells him, "You better treat her right," which was just so cute. Like, even in like losing, he still cares about her. And in this process, as Sandra mentioned, Dorian had some one-off moments with Nehemia about, what's happening to him, and she very vaguely tells him that if he ever needs help, she can help him with what's happening to him. And she also asks him for help with a plan that his dad and the council have of, just making the prison camps bigger, more people in them. His dad and his council are trying to beef up these labor camps so that they can start the iron mines. And in doing so, they're wanting to obviously enslave more people. And Nehemia has a rather large problem with this because it's going to be a lot of her people, the people she cares about, the people that are a part of her kingdom. And she doesn't want this. So she goes to Dorian and asks him for his help because he's the only one on the council that she feels like she can trust. And Dorian's like, "I can't really help you." And she's like, "You can't or you won't." And he kind of just hems and haws. But when he gets into the meeting and hears what's going on and hears how many people are in there, and he starts thinking about Celaena and her experience. And if he could have stopped her from experiencing that, he would have wanted to because he now loves her, right? And so he goes against the council. And his dad's like, "I will kick you out of here. You won't get to vote." And he's like, "I don't fucking care. Don't do it. That's my vote." And he storms out. You later see Roland being a snively little like shithead, and telling him, "Oh, I stopped the vote. I made them not do it. It's okay." Again, trying to get in his good graces, I think, but also just being snively. Yeah. So he did stand up to his dad and all of that, but we'll see if that actually does happen because I don't trust Roland as far as I can throw him, which is probably like on top of myself, really.
It's almost like they're just baiting Dorian for a trap because Roland's working very closely with Dorian's father, and now he's just openly kissing his ass and supporting him, publicly or in front of this council. So he's just trying to worm his way in and get closer, and I bet, and just like figure out what's going on. But I mean, Dorian, if he wasn't feeling like he was on an island before, now he's just definitely feeling alone. He doesn't have Celaena. He's experiencing something physical that is changing with him, and he has no idea about it, and he doesn't know where to go to answers. So this weird little carnival is in town, and there's a sideshow called Baba Yellowlegs, and she claims to be like a 500-year-old witch, the last witch of this witch kingdom. And she says that she can answer whatever questions as long as you pay her, and she'll answer as many questions as you want as long as you keep coughing up the gold to her. So Dorian's like, "What the hell? I'm just going to go to her and ask some questions." And he starts asking things about magic and is it possible for someone to still have magic and that kind of thing. And basically, the big stuff that comes out of that conversation with her is she says that there are whisperings that other continents still do have magic. So he needs to be asking more critical questions like, okay, why would the reason be for getting rid of magic here? Like, what would that purpose serve? And she's getting him to dig a little bit further about that, which nothing points to anything positive with his father.
And one key part that I took out of that is magic disappeared 10 years ago. And another thing that happens right after his talk with her is we are thrown back into 10 years ago for Celaena, which is the night that her parents died. And she is feeling that. She just goes AWOL. She leaves a note for Nehemia, it sounds like. I'm not really sure because Nehemia doesn't confirm that, but it sounds like she leaves a note saying, "Hey, I won't be back until tonight at the earliest." And she just goes on her own little journey and, treks through the mountains and all that stuff with her little puppy, Fleetfoot, and doesn't come back. But Chaol stops by her room when Nehemia is still there and asks where she is because she's supposed to be on a run with him. And Nehemia is like, she's not going with you today. and you should probably know why. And kind of just makes him feel like crap for not knowing, I think, a little bit. And so he finally figures it out, and he's like very beside himself and waits for her all night and buys her a chocolate cake because he thinks she's gonna need one. And that scene got me because that's speaking my love language with the sweets. We also see a flashback during this time of what really happened at Endovier when she went on her rampage. And she said she just lost it, but in this flashback, it's not really that she lost it. She just got tired. She got tired of all the crap, and she's made a conscious choice. She was gonna kill them, and she was gonna show them that it's not okay. And so she attacked one guard, and then she attacked more, and then she attacked more, and then she attacked more, and she was just letting her blood rage flow. That scene was so good. You saw the Celaena, the assassin of Aderlon. You saw her as the person that she was during that time. Not the girl that was half starved, not the person that you took pity on. You saw the full Celaena Sardathian. She said something in that flashback that they had forgotten that Aderlon's assassin was among them. Like, she had willingly let them forget that by letting them do the things that they wanted to her. And then she let it all come back. And she's like, here I am. This is who I am. And it was a very coming back to herself moment, taking back her strength. That was bad and good at the same time. It is bad that she had to take back her strength, but it was good seeing her with that strength. That kind of foreshadows something that happens later in this part of the book too.
I mean, with the 10-year anniversary and her just being stuck in that trauma and everything that she went through, a little over a year ago, and losing Sam, there's a lot of chocolate cake being eaten in this first half of the book, just putting it out there. It's like her comfort food is just like eating chocolate cake or just sweets in general. Nehemia is, while she's still having these little interactions with Dorian and Celaena, she is very noticeably absent a lot too. No one knows where she is going, what she is doing. We know in the last book it was confirmed that she was spying for her home country of Eelway. And with all of this political just rebellion, uprising springing up all over the place, Archer discloses later that he has been working with Nehemia. And this comes up because Chaol is called into the king's throne room, and the king is basically like, you're going to lock down the Princess Nehemia's room. No one is to see her. We're going to question her, and you are not to tell anyone about this. Chaol, being Mr. Honor, is like, okay, this is a test. The king is testing me. If I tell Celaena, it's definitely going to get out there. So I'm just not going to say anything. Nehemia is just going to be questioned about all of this stuff that's happening, and it'll be fine. So Chaol ends up being kidnapped. Someone sneaks up on him. It's not really clear at first, like, who has done this. And he is kidnapped, and a note is left behind for Celaena. So Celaena is just highly stressed out because her last exchange with Nehemia was not a good one. Like, they kind of had a fight about things. And then she is having PTSD with just going through this 10-year anniversary of her parents' death and all of this stuff, the flashbacks of the salt mines. Like, she keeps thinking back to Sam, how he was taken and she couldn't figure out, like, couldn't get to him for days. And in that time, he was brutally murdered when she got to him. And so she is freaking out because Chaol is gone. Like, she is worried that something grave has happened to him. So she goes to the warehouse where this note has told her to go. It's full of people, but she sneaks in there and she finds that Archer is a part of it. She kicks a bunch of ass in this warehouse. She doesn't know who it is. She just thinks they're really bad people. Comes to find out that they are just people part of the rebellion that Nehemia has been helping coordinate with Archer in getting more people involved and participating in this. And something very, very disappointing happens with Celaena and Chaol, and Archer kind of rats him out. Want to go into how that goes down?
Yes, so Archer kind of rats Chaol out for knowing that Nehemia is on lockdown, that there was a threat on her life, according to the king, and that she is going to be questioned that day. And I know Sandra has a more, give him the benefit of the doubt. Like he, chose to do this because he thought it was right and he thought it was a test. But I also like the last thing he said in that scene was that his loyalty was to the king, not to Celaena. And so he had to keep it from Celaena because his loyalty was to the king. And that hit me because, like, he's falling in love with Celaena, but his loyalty is still to the king. And her loyalty, as we saw in the scene, is to him. Like, she was going to get him back. She was going to kill whoever was in her way, and she was going to get him back. There was no doubt in her mind that she was going to go to the ends of the earth to get him back. So she finds out that his loyalty was not to her, it was to the king, and he was keeping this huge secret about her friend. And then Archer goes one step further and he looks at Chaol and he's like, Nehemia's not going to be questioned today, is she? Something else is happening, right? And at that point, it indicated that Nehemia wasn't going to be questioned, she was going to be murdered. And as Celaena has already just went through, like, again, all these traumas, she starts remembering and everything about her parents and finding them, and she's like, not again. And so she hightails it back to this castle and finds Nehemia already murdered and all of her guards already murdered. And that's how this part ends, is we find Nehemia dead. And oh dear Lord, people, the second half, there's gonna be hell to pay. And unfortunately, I think Chaol's gonna be in on that. Like, he's gonna experience some of that hell, I think, because his loyalty wasn't to her, it was to the king, who everybody knows is the biggest jackass in the world. And as I was reading this, like, and how they were talking about the people and that he came to power because the people were starving and there was poverty and all of these things, it was reminding me so much of how Hitler came to power in Germany, and like him taking over the other parts of the continent and all of this stuff and banning shit. And it just reminded me of Hitler. And so I'm like, you basically chose Hitler over the woman that you were falling in love with. That was a wrong choice, a very, very wrong choice.
It was a horrible, horrible betrayal. Like, Celaena has given everything. She's given Chaol her heart, her body. She has cared so much about him and picked him every time. And then to find out in that way in front of such an audience that Chaol kept this from her and didn't think past anything else besides his job and position. When she's like racing back to the castle, like freaking out, she passes Dorian even. Like, she runs past Dorian and he's just like, what the hell is going on? So I can only imagine he's just like on her heels or something. And she gets to Nehemia's room. I mean, the guards' throats are slit. Nehemia, there's so much blood everywhere. I mean, the bed is like soaked and the blood is dark. Who knows how long Nehemia has been dead? You get the sense that everything becomes very quiet in Celaena's head. It's like something cracked and broken. And so from here on out, I'm just like, oh no, our girl Celaena, she's never going to be that comfortable, cozy like person again. Like, this is a countless trauma, like horrible loss that she's experienced. I'm with you. She can do whatever the hell she wants for her revenge.
Yes. I'm down for whoever she wants to murder, like, you're getting it, dudes. But I almost feel sorry for them because she is not going to make this an easy death. She is not going to make this an easy time. She is going to go full on assassin. That was like the worst thing they could do, is kill somebody in that manner to like remind her of how she found her parents in a bed with blood everywhere.
So personal, right? So, with her being formally Otterland's assassin, working for the king, it makes you wonder, like, okay, what could possibly happen? She can't fight an entire kingdom or palace full of people. I mean, she would try till her last breath, but it's just, what is the next thing that's going to happen? Do you remember? So, I think it was like chapter 25 or something. It was kind of a very vague scene. It just kept referring to a conversation between a queen and a princess. It was like a page long or something.
So at first I thought it was Elena, the queen, and Nehemia, because shortly before that, Celaena had taken Nehemia down to the tomb and showed her where she found Elena and talked about that. And that introduced another character that was like just comedy gold, which is Mort, the knocker, like the magical door knocker, who just started being so snarky about everything. Literally everything. Celaena says a word and he's like, snark. just snark. And isn't very helpful. He's very riddly, but full of snark.
He's been down there a long time. He's probably bored out of his mind.
He hasn't made very many friends, and it shows. Right before that is when she took her down there. I personally was thinking it was Celaena and Nehemia at first, but I also think that there's maybe a former queen, not Elena former queen, but like you hear a lot about the royals of Terrasan and how like powerful they were and how if they chose to, they could have wiped out everybody, but they chose not to. They chose to like keep the peace and make sure everybody was behaving themselves, and that was one of the reasons they were the first to go. And we know Celaena has a tie to Terrasan because that's where she's from. So I'm also thinking maybe it was the queen there talking to a princess, possibly.
There have been a couple rumblings about this Aelin Galathynius.
I'm glad you said that because I had no clue. I'm like, I wrote down Aelin G because I was like, there's no way I'm going to say that last name on camera.
Yeah, there have been a few rumblings about this Aelin Galathynius, like the true heir of Terrasan or something, being part of this rebellion, this uprising. And so it makes you wonder what the possibilities are there. I think Dorian even has like a little flashback type of moment where he's recalling a memory of growing up with this foreign princess or whoever.
There's something there because he has a little flashback, but he also had a little flash with Celaena.
Look at Tara's face.
So
Anyone watching, Tara's face is gold.
yeah, it's exciting when like you're like, I think I'm on the right track. I think I am, but you don't know.
Since this is like a subsequent read through, I remember how hard Nehemia's death hit me because I loved her so much as a friend for Celaena, and I was like so sad because I mean their last interaction was having a fight because Celaena wanted to stay out of this. You know, she was kind of adopting the same attitude that Dorian had, which was like, not my problem. I just care about me and my close people, you know, my friends. Like that's all I can think about right now. And Nehemia is just like, why? Like understand that this is a huge issue. It's like a humane problem. Like you should care. And I felt bad that she didn't get to fix that relationship.
Yeah, it's a very not my monkeys, not my circus situation for both Dorian and Celaena at this point, but they made it her circus, unfortunately. But in that kind of like rebellion thing where they were saying that they were going to get Aelin, the real heir to Terrasan, on their side, has you also thinking because Nehemia is on their side. Is she the heir? She keeps talking about Terrasan like she knows it.
Yeah, and we know that she is very educated and knows a lot about different people and languages, and she's magical.
Maybe that's why the king was so against her in the castle and plotting against her is he had heard the rebellion and heard what they were wanting to do, and so he's like, nope.
I feel terrible saying this. It was like it was only a matter of time before something bad happened. She was so close to Dorian and Celaena and just openly talking about being a spy and all of this stuff. It's like so many people are in on a secret. It's going to get out somehow. So Caltaine Rompier is in the dungeons and Celaena pays her a visit. And Celaena is absolutely disgusted and enraged by the treatment of Caltaine. Even though Caltaine tried to get Celaena killed, Celaena still has that level of sympathy for the woman because she finds out that Duke Parrington has been visiting her in the dungeons. Caltaine has visible bruises on, you know, her wrists and stuff. She is going through opium withdrawals. Her mind is very fragmented. It feels like talking to her, she's not really clear on where she's at or anything. She speaks in just weird ways. She keeps talking about the king isn't done with me, like I am the one that will greet it. And it's very cryptic. She starts talking about crows and just hearing wings flapping all the time. Like she sounds like she is going insane.
She makes, like you said, the wings. She insinuates that they are training birds to like make her go crazier and fly in her room and fly outside. And she sounds very paranoid and very almost like, well, mentally ill in some way, for sure. Hopefully we see her on a better note in the future.
Celaena like gave her cloak for warmth because the woman literally has nothing down there except for like a bucket in the corner.
I was shipping Kale. I was. Um,
Here we go. Here we go.
um,
Buckle up, everyone.
there were so many cute scenes. I was shipping Dorian too. I liked this love triangle. I wanted her to be with both of them. I'm not gonna lie. But Kale freaking ruined it so hardcore. This is why I didn't want to ship people. because you can't trust the bastards. You can't trust them, and he ruined it. I was shipping him for a lot of things. Like, you knew he was falling for her. He even like recognized it himself at the beginning of this book when he went to dance with her because she was watching Dorian dance with all of those girls at the first party when Holland came back and they're celebrating this little dipshit. And Dorian has to keep dancing with these girls. And Elena's watching him, and she like takes a breather outside. And Chaol's like, first he's mad at her because like, why are you stepping away from your post? Like, that's not allowed. And then he sees her and he's like, well, dance with me. And I'm like, oh, you're cute. And they dance. And then they kiss.
And Dorian
And
sees.
Dorian sees, and he's just beside himself with jealousy too. And I'm done with her being mean to Dorian. I wanted him to be knocked down a peg, but this is just a little too far. I want her to start being nice to him again. I don't think she's intentionally being mean to him, so don't come at me on that. She's not intentionally being mean, but he's so sweet and he's in love with her. And yeah, I just want him to find his own little girl. And for a minute there, I thought Nehemia and him were gonna start something up. But they didn't, and she's dead now, so.
They definitely did, because in his POV, he was talking about how Nehemia was like the most beautiful person at that ball and like wearing the cobalt blue. And I'm just imagining like this bronze goddess, you know?
And I was so happy for just a split second that I'm like, okay, he's gonna find himself someone too, and then Chaol and Celaena can end up together, and everybody can be happy.
No, this is not that story.
Fucking ruined both of those scenarios for me, both of them in one fell swoop. And then she goes to him after she's poisoned because that's her safe place. And then they're dancing, and yeah, it's just all kinds of sweet. And then it was hilarious when they do their little runs and he's so sweaty and his shirt's sticking to him. And all the girls in the kingdom or castle or whatever are like trying to find a way to like see him on this run and see his sweating. And she even calls it out and she starts like laughing at him and teasing him about it. And he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. But he totally does, because then Dorian gives him crap about it. And he's like, oh, I see that they're not here for me. Chaol just like blushes and she's like, he knew what he was doing. He knew why they were here. But it was just so sweet and so cute and fucking ruined. Because now I don't like him. I want him to like get his punishment too. I'm very vengeful.
It was just so disappointing. Like, this was such a heavy part of the book. So many bad things are happening. There's like, people are just, they don't know what the hell is going on within themselves. The 10-year anniversary, it's just a combination of horrible things happening. And then that, I mean, these moments between like the little jealous moments and Celaena and Chaol enjoying their relationship while it lasted, I'm sure. I mean, those were very critical moments of just lightness that this needed, because it's taken a darker turn and there's no going back now. And what do you think is going on with Dorian? Because he gets upset and everything turns cold, and then he'll punch something, and like he punched a wall or something and cracked it. And there's little tiny things like that. What do you think is going on with him?
I think Dorian, and this might be wishful thinking, but I think he was adopted or like switched at birth or something. Little sweet Dorian, who is from like a magical family, got switched. And I'm hoping it was on purpose so that he could live his life because, ooh, maybe the other family got murdered. And so the king killed his own son.
I mean, it could be a possibility. Apparently, 10 years ago, just all kinds of shit was happening.
Yeah, he was just on like a rage, so like maybe he got switched at birth. That's what I'm thinking. And either the other son's still alive or dead or something, but hopefully not like Holland.
Oh, Holland. There's so much in the air right now. The king, I mean, 10 years ago, he made his huge moves and took over a ton of the civilized world or wherever. There's still free countries and stuff that are on the outskirts. But I mean, he's just making a big push, and who knows like what all is in the works now, that he keeps expanding his council and all of this stuff.
I'm hoping bad things. All bad things.
Yeah, we shall see. We just have part 2 now.
And it's shorter. I have a feeling it's going to be jam packed because, like I said, I think she is going to rain hellfire on everybody. And I am going to love it. And I can't wait to start reading it. I'm very vengeful.
It's been so long since I read this series. I've forgotten so many pivotal moments and stuff that happened. Like, I'm just with you. And I'm like, burn it all down.
I am not great at waiting for the answer, and I'm having to stop myself from, like, looking up, like, "Who is this person?" I know she's somebody else, but who is she? And who is this person? I like, with Dorian, like, I so want to look up, like, a spoiler on Dorian to find out who the hell he is and why he has this magic, and I'm itching, and I have to stop myself because I don't wanna ruin it for myself, and then but I'm having a hard time, like, there's too many like, foreshadowing things going on that I know something's happening. I know it, but I don't know what it is. And it's driving me insane. I'm becoming like Caltane.
Oh, yeah, that woman. You're in for a treat. In for a treat.
I cannot wait for her to go full crazy. I'm waiting for it.
There have been a lot of injustices done against women so far. Like, I'm ready for some just desserts to be served.
I told Sandra this earlier, but she is like my spirit animal or who I wish I had, like, could be, because I am a very vengeful person. Like, I want you to get your just desserts, but I don't have that kind of power. I'm not like an assassin. I can't kick my foot above like my knee, really. Let's be honest. Um,
And then she'll trip while she tries.
yes, yes. And then it'll be easier for the people to like really hurt me. I'm living for her and getting that and being able to take it back. And so I'm living through her right now.
She's such a fun POV to read. So, next week, we're going to finish up reading Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. And then next week, we're going to go into a deep dive discussion on everything that happens there and things that play out with characters. So, looking forward to it.
And you will either see me very, very angry because she did not rain hellfire, or very, very happy and excited because I get to talk about all the murder that she did.
Yeah.
And I will likely
sure.
be wearing my sweater that's the murder sweater. So
Ooh,
that'll give you an
nice.
insight as to what happened. Did she murder people or did she not?
Either way, it's going to be good. And there are, 6 books still after Crown of Midnight? So, I mean, there is still a lot of story to be told. So, it's going to really take off after this book.
And the next one that we're reading is Assassin's Blade, right?
No, the next one we're reading is Heir of Fire.
See, guys, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just along for the journey here. Sandra's telling me what order I need to read.
Don't worry, we have a map. We have a map of what we're doing. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this discussion of part 1 of The Crown of Midnight, and come back next Tuesday for part 2. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.